Hi, folks. My name's Carson Binda, and I'm BC Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, holding down the fort for our tax fighting army here in beautiful Vancouver, BC. Now, I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Gage Hobrick. Gage, how you doing, sir?
Pretty good, Carson. Thanks for jumping on to talk about this with me.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. So, Gage, to bring our viewers up to speed, you were just in Winnipeg at the budget lockup. Now, we spoke on the phone just as you were leaving the rotunda right after your media scrum, and you told me that there was a hidden tax hike in Manitoba's budget. Can you walk us through this?
Yeah, exactly. So if taxpayers don't know, before the government decides to release their budget, they put a bunch of different groups in a room, lock them in there for like 6 hours, and let them go through the budget beforehand to kind of make sure they know what's in it so they can tell us, all the important taxpayers in Manitoba about what's going on in the budget, what they should be looking out about, and most importantly, in our case, what the tax hikes are. So in this lockup, they give you the big printed copy of the budget that goes through all of what the government is going to do this year. And in Manitoba, the premier is going to start punishing Manitobans for getting a cost of living pay raise. And he really doesn't want you to know about it. It's called bracket creep. And you flip through the budget, go all the way through all of the stuff they're going to do. And it only gets mentioned once you get to this page. And it's only on 2 pages in the entire budget and not in the news release.
So it sounds like the Premier of Manitoba, who's Wab Kinew from the NDP, was trying to hide this tax hike. He wasn't out there advertising to Manitobans that he's going to be dipping into their pocketbooks even more this year compared to last year. But Gage, what is bracket creep? Can you explain this to all the folks who are listening at home? I know what income taxes are. I know what gas taxes are. What is the bracket creep tax?
No, exactly right. And this is a hidden tax hike for two reasons. Firstly, it's a hidden tax hike because the government wasn't being honest with Manitobans in its budget release about that they're going to be doing this year, but it's also hidden because how it affects Manitobans. So what bracket creep is when the government stops indexing its tax brackets to inflation. And that means taxpayers can be bumped up into an additional tax bracket and pay more taxes despite not making any more real money. So what that means, right, is every year most people, they get a cost of living raise. So it looks like you're making more money on paper, but they can't actually afford more because prices at the grocery store have also gone up. So usually governments index their tax brackets to inflation, so increase the amounts by that as well. So you're not going to be bumped into a new tax bracket because you're not making any actual more money. It's just a paper amount, right? Because inflation is going to take up that extra cost. But this year, because they've decided to freeze those rates, as Manitobans get cost of living pay raises, they're not actually making any more money. The government of Manitoba is going to take more money out of their pockets automatically. It's a sneaky backhanded tax hike, and it continues to be sneaky every single year because the premier doesn't have to stand up in the legislature and say, oh, we're voting to hike Manitobans' taxes this year. Inflation does it for them, and every single year, Manitobans are paying more due to this tax hike.
Right. So by not indexing those income tax brackets to inflation, Manitobans who are getting a cost of living adjustment this year could be pushed up into those higher income tax brackets and end up paying more tax despite taking home the equivalent of the same amount of money as last year. Now, Gage, I know this is a hot button debate across Canada. Different provinces have addressed bracket creep differently in the past. Is this new to Manitoba? Did Manitobans have bracket creep last year, or is this something new that has started with Wab Kinew this year?
So thankfully, across the country, most provinces have realized that this is a bad idea and don't do it anymore. There's only two provinces that have some form of bracket creep that they subject their taxpayers to anymore. And Manitoba was right in the past because they ended up getting rid of it in 2017 and started indexing the tax brackets to make sure that taxpayers weren't paying more taxes than they should be. But now they're bringing it back, and it's going to cost taxpayers more money. And this is a problem in Manitoba specifically, because if you're already living in Manitoba, you're a regular Manitoba family, you're paying more in provincial taxes than a similar family in Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario. You're already paying more taxes than all of those provinces, and the government decided to hike your taxes even further in a hidden, sneaky way this year with bracket creep.
Great. Well, Gage, thank you so much for explaining this to everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And for taxpayers out there, we'll be doing more on this soon. We're always going to be calling on the government to get rid of this bracket creep tax hike, making it aware so everyone in Manitoba knows how this sneaky tax hike is going to be making them pay more. And we're going to make sure that the Minister of Finance and the Premier hears from taxpayers and that we tell them the simple message: stop hiking taxes on Manitobans and stop doing it in such a sneaky way.
Great. Thank you so much.